that too loud, Daddy?
Hey, everybody. Thank you for all joining tonight on tonight's Rooftops of America live stream. Thanks for being here. Tonight's special guest will be this can of Super Bollocky by Ommegang. It's a Belgian-style amber ale. Looks like this. And let's dive into our main event, which is all things Mount Whitney. Let's see, start from the top. Still sort of tired. It's been a long weekend. That actually had nothing to do with Mount Whitney. Just a series of events through the weekend that has sort of wiped me out. Hey, Bill, glad you're here. So let's talk about Mount Whitney. A week ago, this time, I would have been in the Whitney portal. We were spending our first night there. I flew out Saturday afternoon and arrived in San Diego, spent a night at my friend's house, Brett's. And then from there, on Saturday, we went up to Whitney, to the portal, to camp for a few days. Pretty smooth sailing. The only thing of note was the wildfires. The smoke in the Owens Valley was... We actually filmed a bit on Sunday, and if you were standing in the Alabama hills, you would have been hard-pressed to see the Sierra Nevada because the smoke was that thick. It did clear out throughout the week we were there. It got better and better. But that first afternoon made for... It was... We were a little bit shocked at how thick it was. I guess there were fires both to the north and south on the western side that was affecting visibility. The air condition, or the air probably was... I'm glad we wouldn't have had to gone up that day. So then, so Sunday we spent the night in camp, set up everything right at the Whitney Portal camp there. Got up Monday and went out and filmed, both down a bit in the Alabama hills, mainly around Whitney proper itself, Whitney Portal, campground area. And we filmed quite a bit. And I think footage-wise was really good. That brings us up to... That's Monday. So Tuesday, we got up and we didn't get an early start, but by... What time did we step off? 7:30? About 7:30, we stepped off to trail camp, and we hiked in. And that first day, here's a couple thoughts that I had on the first day. One, I really like my Gregory Stout pack. I had not gotten as much shakedown hiking as I would have liked with it, but man, that thing fits like a glove. Felt really good underload, and the hike into trail camp was it was a long day. For the 6 miles, I hiked at a solid pace. I did take some breaks, and get there. We got there plenty of light, set up camp, and ate. We filmed more, actually, once we got there, too. We actually filmed several scenes up at trail camp because it was ridiculously pretty. And from that point, got an early... I was racked out by about 7. Yeah, about 7 o'clock. I was actually trying to pretend to sleep knowing that the next day, that Wednesday, the 31st, was going to be the big day. And got up at 2 in the morning on Wednesday, ate some oatmeal, and I stepped off around 3. Of the 4 of us there, I was the slowest. So I figured, I would try to start earlier than the rest of the team and let them catch up because, they're a bunch of rabbits and I'm a tortoise. So I did pretty much all the 99 switchbacks were done in the dark until near the top. Then the sun started to peak up. And so my impression of the 99 switchbacks was these don't seem too bad, but considering I was just doing them in headlamp, I couldn't really make out anything. And so that was relatively smooth sailing. As a counterpoint, when I was coming back down, I was like, wow, there's a lot more of these than I thought there was. And then, by the time I got to the top of the mountain around, must have been, I predicted it would take me 6 hours. And I got there about 15 minutes early. So about 8:45, I was at the top. So, and it was cool. Like the Whitney hike was, I think, trail wise, that's the easiest big mountain trail of all the Western peaks. Like it's well developed, it's well traveled. You're not gonna get lost on that trail. It's well maintained. Like I said, it's well maintained. It's easy. It's just super long, and that adds up. So like the conditions of the trail, great, but you're still doing a ton of miles, and it was, the hike out was, when it was all said and done, like we got to the top of Whitney, we stepped back off. We had gotten everything. Half hour later, we were done at the summit, and we started hiking out. So 9:15, we were out the door, heading back down the mountain, and it took 4.5 to get to trail camp, back down to trail camp, and then packed everything up. And we stepped off from trail camp at 2, and we were eating delicious bacon cheeseburger, and drinking some Indian Wells beer at the portal by about 6. No, 6:30. 6. Around there. It was definitely evening. And man, that beer tasted good. And so did that burger. That burger was delicious. But overall, it was a really solid adventure. I'm looking forward to putting it all together. And we took a lot of footage. We shot a lot of stuff. It's just so pretty. I was sort of shocked. I mean, I say it all the time, oh, it's pretty. As you're going up and you're looking around, you're like, oh, this is gorgeous. But the Sierra Nevada really is. I get it now a little bit better than I did before. And how that place could captivate people so easily. Things on the hike that I learned, once again, oatmeal in the morning is king. Gave me fuel all day long, it felt like. And, I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just using like Quaker, like the little packets of, I prefer the apple cinnamon ones. And those seem to sit really well and just quick to make and easy to go. The other thing I learned was my hip is still sort of flaring up. It didn't actually do that at Marcy, but it definitely did at Whitney, and that that was a challenge going up. It wasn't as bad coming down, but going up, by the time I got to the summit, my right hip was red hot, basically. Like every moving up, I could just feel it flaring, and that was a little disconcerting. So I'm gonna have to go get that checked out. And let's see. Um, I did not stay on top of my fluids as well as I should have. Um, I though I was able to recover easily. I never ran out of water, um, but I probably should have taken a little bit more for that the hike from trail camp to the summit and back. Um, that said, I got a new Catadine filter. I'll have to show it at the next one of these we do. That thing is amazing. It literally is. You take the bladder, you dip it in, you put the filter screwed on, and there you go. That thing was awesome. Really like that. I don't feel we took too much gear. We took just the right amount. I don't feel I was short on snacks. So I really feel that everything sort of worked out. I also think that the Marcy hike really paid off, particularly late in the game, coming back down from Whitney on that second day. That honestly, we were getting near the end, and I'm like, I don't feel too terrible. I felt more work coming down Marcy than I did here. So there was just this mental aspect of knowing that I could crush it and at my slow pace. Uh, so that really made the second day a whole lot easier on Whitney. So it was overall a nice, cool adventure. We had beautiful days the whole time out. Like maybe a little too much sun. I could have used a few clouds here and there, but not a cloud to be seen. The views were amazing. We had the smoke that first day, but the whole time we were there, it was sunny. And yeah, that makes it there's some pros and cons to that. Overcast is always easier to film in, so you're not fighting that hard light. But you know, we didn't have to worry about getting wet boots, wet equipment, things like that. I do know that shortly thereafter we left, that they were expecting the weather to become much more inclement for at least a day or two. But we were gifted with excellent weather. It wasn't overly hot, but it was hot enough that I'm glad I switched over to a short sleeve shirt. Um, both on the hike in to trail camp and the hike back down from the summit. All right, so I'm sure there's be more. Let me go to the chat quick. Hey Bill, glad you're here. Hi Eric. Hey traveling around man. Thanks for being here. Sea Toss. I watched your video of Kings Peak. What tent are you using for overnight camping? It is not. I'll have to look it up, the actual brand, but it is a 1.5 size. Um, enough for me and my gear. But I surprisingly, while I took it with me to California, I did not end up using that tent. Um, in the sake of space and equipment, I shared a tent with Eric, my buddy Eric. So we had a REI um, two-person. I can't think of the name. I can find out though. But that one that I used in Kings Peak, it's a nice little tent. I like it. Um, so I'll get you a name so you can know it. All right. We get caught in hailstorm going down the switchbacks. That hurt a little. Yeah, not. We got caught in a hailstorm out in Kings Peak, and that sucked. But nothing. Whitney was, the thing we were complaining about on Whitney was, man, the sun is relentless. So it's one of these things. Like, I suppose every hiker will always find something to complain about weather-wise. There's too much sun. There's too much rain. Um, Eric, did anyone check your hiking permit? No, they did not. Though there were other groups that we saw on the trail that had their stuff checked. So, but we did not see a ranger or anything like that while we were out there. But like I said, other groups had encountered and had been checked. So I guess you can take your chances, but um, no, it was, and I want to say also when we were there Tuesday and Wednesday, like when we went in, it was pretty sparse. Um, there were, I feel like most of the traffic was coming up from Sequoia more so than from the Whitney portal. Um, but if I was going to do this again and I needed to get a permit, I would definitely shoot for like the middle of the week. I feel like you would be relatively successful there. So, like I said, nobody checked us. Had it though, had it right in the top of my. In fact, I think it's still in the top of my pack. I don't think I pulled it out yet. So, um, so Whitney, what did I learn? I learned that the that high desert altitude still wreaks merry havoc on chapping out my lips, because that happened really quick. Only there for a couple days, and sure enough, by the time I left, they had started to crack again. So, note to self: take your Aquaphor, take your Carmex, take your Blistex, whatever, for protection if you are susceptible to that. It's a thing I've known for two. Like, I had no excuse. This happened to me when I was first out there in the Marines, and that was closer to the coast when I was to do field stuff at Camp Pendleton. So I've always known that the California weather, that dryness that comes in with it, will catch me off. Um, so that's the only real injury I would say that was new. The hip thing has been an issue for a while. So um, let's see. The length and altitude make Whitney difficult. I would not say the trail is very difficult. I would agree with you. The trail is super nice. Um, it is a really nice trail. It is a well maintained trail. You can definitely feel the love in the trail. But you're right, the length and the altitude. Surprisingly, though, I would, on the two big hikes I've done, well, back to back, I'd actually say Marcy was a harder day than the second day Whitney was. And the part of the reason I think is because it was a solo effort on my part, where with Whitney I had, friends to commiserate with. Um, and, I will say slow and steady was definitely the way I got to the top of Whitney. Um, Particularly once you got past Trail Crest and you start dropping down the backside of the Needles or the Spires, whatever, and then you get to where you get to where you're going to work up the plateau. At that point, I knew I was close, but I was taking a few more breaks than I would have liked. Um, track, stop, but um, you're never going to do anything. It's not steep. How do I rephrase it? None of the trail is steep. It's just gradual. You're always grinding. Um, the funny thing was, like going down, we definitely were moving faster going down. But for me, the the incline had taken it so much out of me that when we were coming back down and you have to go up that, I called it the final insult, to get up to the trail crest to get back on the 99 switchbacks to go down. That kicked my butt probably more than anything in the hike, was that last little incline to get, as you're going down. I was just like, this sucks. I'm like, I can't believe, we've already done all the hard work, and this um this is the part that's kicking my butt, is on the descent. Um so let's see, yep, those 2 miles above Trail Crest, I was stopping to catch my breath. Yeah, yeah. I'd like to say, yeah, they were 1 minute breaks, but I'm pretty sure they were more like two or three. um Met a lot of good people on the trail, and that was cool. Um, and it was sort of, talked a little bit about the series to folks, here and there where I could, and you know, I didn't feel like I felt I felt like a more accomplished hiker than some of my peers. Not all of them. In fact, a majority of them I think were probably better suited than I am. But there were moments where I'm like, we've got some experience doing this. We know what we're about, and that was refreshing too. Um, I think if I was going to evaluate, like Whitney's an interesting one because I think it's also there. It was one of the last of the easy ones, and in fact, if I was going to put it on the list, um, you could. If I feel if somebody was, it's got to be the hmm. Trying to feel like out of the Western ones, like you have two sides. You have that northwest corner where they're all difficult, and then you have, like, Kings Peak is harder than Whitney. Um, at least that's the way I would evaluate it. Um, and they're about the same length, but Whitney is, while it has more elevation, is more gentle on it. What was your total time hiking? So let me do some quick math in my head. We'll say 13 hours on day 2, 5 hours on day 1, I think. Yeah. No, maybe a little more. 6 hours on day 1. We're doing That would have been not including the breaks. Um, why would I say Kings is harder? Because I think the trail is not as gentle and easy. Um, you do have more, like, you are constantly going up with Whitney. Like, I will give you that. Like, hey, guess what? It's 8,000. You're starting here at 8,300 and some change, or 8,400, and you're gonna start trekking up the whole time. But it's gradual gain. Where Whitney or Kings, I would say, looking back on it, even though we broke up into 3 days, if I was going to do it in 2 days, I think Kings is the harder hike. Um, because once you get up Gunsight Pass and you start working way to Anderson Pass, but that final, like the final push up Kings itself, is sort of over a rock pile. So I would say that part, just the amount of time and investment, um, would make it a struggle. Do you think it would be safe to do with 6 to 12 inches of snow on the trail? I'm pretty sure even with the snow, it would be well traveled enough. Though, um, if that's the case, you might want to consider the Mountaineers route um, if you wanted to do it snow wise. So, um, that's a really good question, Eric, and I don't know if I am suited to answer it. Uh, I would like to think that the crew out there at Whitney and Inyo National Forest, if there's going to be a place that's going to make the make it worth or make it safe, I guess that'd be the place. Like they would be putting in the investment um, to make sure that the trail is set for winter related activities. Um, that'd be pretty epic. There was, I'm trying to think, like, go through the whole trail in my mind, and the only place I would be a little bit sketched out would be on the backside of the spires. There were a couple places there where it's like you're looking down and you're like, that's a long drop. But I would think, I mean, this is just me speculating, that you'd be all right if you were, because you wouldn't be the only person doing something like that. I don't know if that makes sense. So, needless to say, that was number 42. And I feel like I'm in the downward trend here. Um, I don't want to say the final countdown yet, but you know, I feel once I get Maine knocked out, it is definitely I am now looking at rarefied air and seven peaks of real work, with the exception of Hawaii. But I guess that's real work in its own right. Simply being able to get out there. So it'll be it's going to be something. So you're absolutely right, Ron. I have all the hard left. Um, but overall, I mean, crew wise, we felt pretty solid about it. Um, like it was a good outing, and you know, other things I'd comment on that I thought I liked the Mountain Home chicken and dumplings. Surprisingly, hadn't had it before. Really liked the that for my meal at night. So once again, the jet boil coming through. Oatmeal in the morning, as I said. Um, the Bob's Oat bars that I've been using for snacks throughout this year, they on the second day I had a hard time putting down the peanut butter and jelly one, and I'm not sure if it was the bar itself. I don't think it was the bar itself. I think it was the fact that I was probably a bit too dehydrated. My appetite had fled. So, needless to say, I might experiment around a little bit. Um, I did use, I once again dusted off Cliff Blocks. I had Brett pick me up a few of the caffeinated Cliff Blocks, and those came in handy on day two. These were nice little pick me ups. The orange ones. Um, they had black cherry and they didn't like them, but the orange ones taste like orange, so that was good. The electrolytes level, those that work great. Like I said, I stayed okay on hydration. I probably could have been a little bit better, but overall, yeah, the that was that was something I was a little bit more concerned about due to the fact that I had ran out a half mile short on Marcy. Um, so No. Let's see. I'll start. Hey, glad you're here. Yes, I did. Just did Mount Whitney. We summited on the 31st of July. High point, state high point number 42. Um, so let's see what else. Other things I would recommend going out there. Um, I will say that when we finished the hike, we were sitting at the portal, and we pretty much all agreed that we're driving back to San Diego tonight. So, because we didn't really feel like setting up camp one more time in the portal for another night, and then getting out of Dodge the next morning. So we literally just packed everything in the car and headed out. Um, we were definitely done with. we're done with this. We're ready to sleep in real beds. So um, no, I mean it was a great experience, and I liked Whitney a lot. I liked the car camping aspect of it. I liked camping at elevation at trail camp. I wouldn't if I was going to do it again. I think I'd want to do 3 days if I could get that. I'd like to spend more time um, chilling out, maybe at Outpost, or maybe even making it. I'm not sure you can camp at Lone Pine, but if you could, what a beautiful area. So there's a wealth of riches out there. There was a person I met on the trail that was doing the John Muir Trail. She was actually finishing it up. Um, and according to her, that's just an amazing experience. So that would be something for folks if you had more time to consider as well as doing that particular route, all 214 miles, 240 miles, something like that. But still, it was ridiculously pretty. And like I said, it was total type 2 fun. So everything that goes with that. So how y'all doing? There, that's my Whitney report. Been rambling on for an hour. I realize high pointing specifically is a small niche for online content creation. No saturation here. Yeah, pretty much. We talked about that too when we were talking about the series, and that's one of the things as we were talking. Like, we put a lot of effort. I put a lot of effort into producing what I hope is quality stuff for a very particular small group. Like, part of me is like, this is the kind of thing, like, if you were in a marketing class or you're trying to identify your audience and you're trying to expand the thing, this is not what you do. Where you're like, I'm going to make high quality content, like the best I can do for a very small group. And they will be awesome and they will watch it, but it's never going to get too big. Uh, but yeah, so it's definitely, we talked about that a lot. Like, we put a whole lot of effort into doing this stuff for what is in many ways a very niche audience. So, and I wouldn't have it any other way. What else came up? So now that Whitney's done, the real trick is seeing if we can potentially get Maine knocked in. What other locations did you visit for the history part of the CA episode? Surprisingly, we were limited. I limited this shoot pretty tight to Alabama Hills and Whitney Portal itself because I knew that's where we had the time. If I would have had, let's say I could have spent 3 more days out there, I definitely would have gotten up to Sutter's Mill area for sure. That would have been something I would have really liked to have seen. I would have also liked to got more on the western side of the Sierra. So, but we shot tight in the Whitney area itself because that's what we had the time for. So now I will cover some of those other areas in voiceover and stuff like that. But as for locations, with it's funny, the location I really wanted to shoot at, um, more than any other, was Alabama Hills. It's like a filmmaker's dream to film there. So it's my favorite. Like, you have seen stuff that takes place in the Alabama Hills, no matter like new movies, commercials, old movies, the whole works. But no, so made a couple creative choices on that, Eric, to limit locations simply because we didn't have the time. That was the thing that makes, in some ways, what we learned at Whitney is going to definitely, so both what we learned at Kings Peak and Whitney is definitely going to influence how we approach Granite, Gannett, um, for sure. Idaho's different because that's a up and out one day. So we have more time, we have more flex. Yeah, Tremors, definitely Tremors. Yeah, that's such a great movie. We talked about that numerous, like there was more than a few times that Tremors came up because I believe Brett is one of his favorites too. So equipment wise, um, we did a lot more of prime camera with the GoPro, especially up at trail camp. So we're going to see how that turns out. Because lugging up a big old Canon or a big old Nikon is, it's a pain in the ass. And if we can make it work with the GoPro, that changes our dynamic on how we film things. Definitely lightens the load. So the other thing I noted with the drone was, damn, those mountains are high. um, Definitely, I got some decent drone footage, but I don't think I got as good as I could have gotten. Um, it's workable, but flying up near the portal, you're really struggling for elevation. You're fighting it, trying to get it up there. Um, the drone's just, you're watching the battery just drop because you're so much energy is going into keeping the thing flying, and then you might have wind that blows in, and the whole works. The other thing I noted was because the Sierra Nevada are so dang tall that if you want to shoot them in sort of a panoramic, sort of scenic view, you really need to be back a bit for standoff because they are so tall, especially if you're shooting out of the Owens Valley where, you have the escarpment effect. So, hey, David, thanks for being here. Um, so that was a couple things learned. We did take an Insta360 camera up this time, and I have no idea how any of that looks, but we shot that pretty well, and so we'll see what we get out of that particular. If there's stuff we can get out of that, that'll be useful. The other thing, equipment-wise, that I noted was definitely working more with the new wireless set, and that's working well. I do have to confess that we forgot a wire, the wire that plugs into the camera to the receiver, and when you forget that, you're sort of sunk. So, but oops, no. So we'll see how this turns out. I have a feeling, California, when it all gets bundled, it's going to look really good, but some of the audio might be a little bit sus here and there, simply for the fact, and that's right, I totally use my kid's 11-year-old lingo of sus. But some of the audio might be a little bit bumpier than normal, simply because I forgot a piece of equipment. But it happens. Next time I'll double check. We knew exactly where it was, though, when we realized we'd forgotten it. But yeah, so overall, Whitney, it's only been a couple days, um, and it was great to hang out with the team again. It's always great to hang out with the team. I love those guys, and it was a solid adventure. Nobody got hurt. Uh, we did have sore feet and no injuries, though. I rolled an ankle. That was, I think, the biggest one. Um, but that was, no blisters. Um, I would say B plus for right now. Maybe it'll be bumped up to an A as the comfort of memory takes hold. Plans for the rest of the year: Maine. I still want to get Maine. I'd like to get Maine in the middle of September. Uh, I might also try to knock out refilm Ohio, maybe refilm New Jersey, and figure out refilm West Virginia. So 4, one new, 3 other redos. Of the redos, the easiest would be Jersey. That already had the length. It was just the audio was terrible. So then to get content out, the next thing that's going to come out should be New York. And I'd like to get New York out by the middle of August. So you guys can get a brand new episode, never seen before stuff. So that should be coming down the pike. And California, Brett's got all the content for that, so he'll be assembling that. I got to get him voiceover. And then that should come out. And series, finally, should also be coming out. So if I can stay on point, get New York out in the middle of August, get series out and totally finish Rooftops Solar System, and get that out by September, middle of September. And then I got California, Puerto Rico, Alabama still in the can that are filmed that I have to get done. I'll just start. If I'm correct, New York is the first peak ascending. Yes, it is. And when you're standing on the top of Mount Marcy and you're looking out at the fellow Adirondacks, and you realize that Nebraska's taller than all of this. How about that for a way to finish out this particular effort? So I'm going to probably wrap this one. Well, it's already 9:14, so we're going to pretty much wrap on time. But I have a week in D.C. starting tomorrow for work-related things, and I might actually try to run out, get on the old red line, and go up to Tenleytown and visit everybody's favorite federal district, High Point, good old Point Reno, and see if I can drag a work colleague or two with me to experience the joys of high pointing. I'll promise them, like, hey, we'll stop at a restaurant on the way back. So, but yes, Whitney was great. And if you haven't been there yet, you're going to be in for a real treat. That said, I'm glad all the training I did this year to build up for it has completely paid off. I need to do more. I need to continue to get faster, better, stronger, all those things. Bionic Man, music, cue it. But no, like, I had a lot of nerves going into it, and they were unfounded. But at the same time, they kept me on point. So on that note, it's 9:15. Thanks everybody for joining today. I really appreciate you being here, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Maybe I'll tell you about summiting Point Reno. So have a great welcome to August, everybody. I hope you have great adventures coming up. Cheers.